just like Warren Buffett says, you should learn from mistakes. They don't have to be your mistakes. So learn from my screw ups. And those screw ups were this. And that's why I have these 5 rules on every one of my videos right below my enormous head when I'm talking about different things. And if you can follow these 5 rules, I think it will serve you quite well. And I wish I would have known that beforehand, and I wouldn't have lost so much. And that's why I'm a little bit more risk averse going into this next bull run.
Hey guys, welcome back to the show today. I'm here with Rob, which is founder of Digital Asset News and YouTube legend. How are you doing, Rob?
Good, Mauricio. Thanks for having me on for the first time.
As I told you off camera, I've been watching your videos since basically inception of your channel. So I'm super excited you are here with us today. But before we dive into it, do you mind to give us an intro and tell us about yourself?
Born and raised pretty much in the Midwest. And then as I got older, I realized that I would like to do something bigger than myself. So I joined the Army. And I was in the Army for 8 years, and I was what's called a combat medic. And did 8 years there, nice little stint. And then as I got out, I was in medical industry, home health care. These were nationwide companies, and then got into medical devices. And then after a while, I figured out that, hey, if I'm going to work for somebody else, I'm never going to find the freedom that I want to be or want to have. So I started up with online education platforms and did my own businesses, and then came real estate and then a sports facility. And as time went on, as small business owners and big business owners start to realize that you're needed less and less as things start to kind of run themselves and you have people around you. So at that point, I started to look into crypto. And I got into crypto in Bitcoin. I got into Bitcoin specifically in 2017. And actually, I would have been in Bitcoin into 2012 when my son came home and said, hey, I got a great opportunity for us. There's this thing called Bitcoin. And there's a kid selling 500 Bitcoin for $500 on a hard drive. And I said, Alan, that makes absolutely no sense. I don't know what Bitcoin is. Why would they sell something that is totally worthless? And that was my first foray. Then fast forward in 2017, got into Bitcoin. And then after that, it was all pretty much downhill and an uphill battle at the same time. So here we are today talking to you, Mauricio.
I love it. Thank you so much. And where do you think we are in the cycle? Do you think it's too late? Do you think it's over? What's your view here?
I guess it depends. It depends on, like, if you're into meme coins, then I think it might not be the best time for you. I don't know. Meme coins to me are kind of like, there's some decent projects out there you might do really well, but those are gambling in my personal opinion. Nothing wrong with gambling. I lived in Vegas for 2 years. I have no problems with that. But I think as far as like the point of the cycle, let me give you an example. In 2017, when I first bought into Bitcoin, I got it at $8,500. And I thought for sure I missed the boat, because in the beginning of the year, it was 1,000. And I'm like, well, this sucks. That's an 8.5x. And I'm just sitting here, buying somebody's bags, but, maybe it'll go to 9,000. I don't know. So I kept buying. And then I went to 12,000, I bought there. And then I went to 17,500, I bought there. Then at 19.5, I go, well, if it went from 1,000 to 8,000, 12 to 19, it's going to absolutely go to 30,000, because, John McAfee would, and this is the time, John McAfee was at the peak. He said it's going to $1 million and it's going to go to $1 million soon. So no one would lie to me. Now here we are. So I know people would say, like, well, did I miss the boat? If you look at the long-term time horizon, you haven't missed anything, unless you're Germany. If you're the German government, you really made the worst trade of all time.
Exactly. You just lost 50,000 Bitcoin, right?
I will tell you this, like in 2020, and I think this is where the German government's going to figure it out, is that in 2020, even I was into Bitcoin, and I had a choice to either buy, because me and the wife, we like to dabble into real estate. And we had an opportunity to buy a condo for $260,000. Great location, Puerto Rico, near the beach, great times. And we could do this, short-term to long-term rentals. $260,000, cash only offer. Great. So if you look back in 2020, Bitcoin's around 8,000, 9,000. If you would have put $260,000 into Bitcoin, even though you do pretty well in short-term rentals, it would have been at the peak like around $1.7 million or somewhere around there. And even today, where we're at, actually you'd be, way ahead. So I know people like, Germany, the German government, they thought they made a great trade because, they wanted to get out of it. They have massive debt. They have different issues they have to deal with. I'm not going to speak for Germany. But if you just zoom out and look at it, like Bitcoin's a great play, especially if you have a 4-year, 8-year, 12, 16, 20 plus year horizon. I think you're in the right place at the right time.
I agree. And it's funny when you zoom out and look back into the cycle, any financial decision so far that I had to compare it with, it was a fiasco, no matter how successful it was. I wanted to ask you, I know you actually are in real estate because, for example, I'm 100% Bitcoin. I have a small amount of cash I use to pay, the petrol for my car. Of course, being in Dubai means I can freely go in and out of the market without paying taxes, hence why I'm in Dubai.
Right.
My whole life gravitates around Bitcoin and I store as much as I can. I'm getting paid in crypto. So I touch only a small amount of fiat and I just pile up. But there are things that I'm interested in. For example, I do love as a concept gold. I love real estate as an asset as well. Do you also have gold or other, maybe S&P, other assets in your portfolio?
Yeah. And I know people will say, well, why? That's a pretty bad trade, because if you look at, the history of gold and, of course, the gold bugs will tell you just how great it's going to be, even though, if you go back and take a look at Peter Schiff when he was, condemning Bitcoin in 2013, and then 7 years later was roughly the same price point. You ask yourself, why would I get into precious metals, gold and silver? And for me, it's because I'd like to hedge my bet just a little bit. And then also I trust capital and I can buy gold and silver and I can put that in my retirement, my Roth IRA. So for me, I'm like, well, I'll do a little bit of that because I feel like, I know some will say this, like, you should just go all Bitcoin, but I just kind of feel like maybe I should just do a little bit of dabbling into it. So a little gold and silver, never hurt anybody. I think it's been around for a millennia. It's going to be around for long after we're gone. So sure, I could do that. And then real estate is also another hedge. And then it's also nice because we just talked about taking that long time horizon. But sometimes when and especially for the newbies that get here, if you got in 21, welcome. This is your first cycle. It's going to be fun. But if you're going to get into the next blow off top cycle, which could be, depending on who you believe, it could be towards the end of 2024 or 2025 or maybe 2026. But at some point, someone's going to buy the top. And then when you buy the top and you're coming out, you're like, shoot, maybe I shouldn't have gone all in because I don't think maybe I have that 4 years in me. Because maybe I invested more than I was comfortable with and I went a little bit too heavy, and it's natural, it's normal. So like for me, when I get into these different assets and even meme coins, right? Even altcoins, I know. Well, Mauricio, we're in altcoins, we're in meme coins sometimes. It is kind of like a little bit of a hedge on the short term, especially when you're going into, you're like, okay, well, Bitcoin went down, but this property is doing very well and it's generating revenue because it's short term. People are still traveling. And then when the short term, rentals run out, then sometimes we do long term. And sometimes with the gold and silver, it doesn't follow the S&P 500 directly, and it actually doesn't follow Bitcoin and also altcoins. So it's kind of interesting to kind of see things kind of ebb and flow, and you can kind of be up somewhere and down somewhere, which actually really helps you, especially if those, let's be honest, maybe we invest a little bit too much and we're like, shoot, I really need that kidney transplant or whatever it is. And you got to actually pull things out. So yeah, in these situations, I think it's good to have a little bit of a cushion and also a little bit of revenue coming in.
I agree. I also like the cash flow item when it comes to properties, for example. Well, Bitcoin doesn't give you cash flow. I mean, the best way to describe it is probably my brother was talking to me the other day and he said, it's like a cake that every 4 years grows back. Okay, but you have to sell some of it, right? If you want to profit, whether in real estate, you can just rent out and it's the cash flow, right? Also, I think gold is the kind of digital analogic version of Bitcoin. So it's kind of polar opposite. And I love that. Whether I wouldn't go and buy tech stock, for example, I much rather have Bitcoin. That's my opinion. Whether gold, then it's interesting. It's also a metal, has a frequency. I like holding it, I'm a big fan. I used to have a position in London, but then when I moved to Dubai, I couldn't go to the airport with 2 bags of gold and say, hey, I'm going to Dubai, Habibi. They would have probably put me in jail or confiscated everything. So I had to liquidate my position. And now in Dubai, by the way, I've been told gold is cheaper. So maybe I would at some point take some profit into gold. And I agree with you. There is probably the only thing I disagree with Michael Saylor is I think there is a second best, a third best, a fourth best. So as much as I'm a big fan of Bitcoin, I'm not saying to be completely diversified because that's not what I'm looking after, but having a position in a couple of strategic assets besides Bitcoin, I think it makes sense. And you touch on the cycles. Do you still believe in the 4-year cycles for Bitcoin?
I still believe in it unless something comes to fruition or some data point comes out and says, no, this is totally irrelevant. This is totally invalid, but I still see it valid. And I think the data supports me on this one. I mean, everything it goes through with halving, and we get an all-time high, then as I call a dip and a reset. So 2012, halving, 2013, all-time high, 2014 and 15, dip and a reset, 2016 to 2020, 2021, and then we just had a halving this year. I want to say April 20th, somewhere around there. Correct me in the comment section. Of 2024. So next year we might see a new all-time highs. But I will tell you, this one's different because we've never hit an all-time high and exceeded that before the halving. And of course, that is the natural exuberance that comes through with the spot Bitcoin ETF. So there was a lot of demand, there was a lot of hype, and I think things kind of cooled off, and that's fine. But we'll see if it really holds up. But maybe we, like you say, Mauricio, maybe at some point we get to this magical super cycle. I hope we actually hit that. But I heard that a lot last time, and that didn't come to fruition. So maybe this will be the time. Who knows?
I agree. And how do you feel about ETF? Because I had a Peter Schiff versus Da Vinci, gold versus Bitcoin, a few months ago on my channel. And Peter Schiff was crazy about the fact that, the ETF is destroying the purpose of Bitcoin in the first place, which I disagree, by the way. That's my take. It's another way to custody. You can choose if you want to go down that route. But how's your view on the ETF? Do you think they're helping or not?
I mean, I think it's helping in the demand portion of it because, you have to hold physical Bitcoin. But for me, and I think a lot of people that are watching this video, they're Bitcoin OGs or they're people who have been around for quite some time. They're like, why really even get into that? Because I can do things on cold storage and I can actually custody that myself, and I trust myself. And I always say like this, there's a way that things should be, and there are a way that things are gonna be. And the way that things should be is that you should self-custody, you should learn about it, you should get off the nanny state and having the banks and the government support all the things that you would like to do. And you should learn that you can actually custody it, and you can have sound money, a store of value, and you can actually hold it yourself. Now, there's some people that just don't feel comfortable with that because they've done this their whole lives, and I get it. If you're a single mom, 3 kids and 2 jobs, maybe you don't want to figure it out. Maybe you don't trust yourself, or maybe you think to yourself, wow, I have very little funds, so I'm going to have to trust a bank. That's fine. There's a way things that should be, and there's a way things are going to be. And the way things are going to be is that ETFs are out there and they're going to, bring people in. Some people don't like it. I really don't mind it as much as long as people are understanding what Bitcoin is. Then they go down that rabbit hole. And at some point they really figure it out and go, wow, maybe I don't need this ETF. Maybe I can just use a cold storage device and actually own something, like really own something. Just not to get off topic, but like all the real estate we just talked about, I don't own real estate. I mean, I own the real estate, but I truly own it? No, because I'm going to still have to pay taxes on it for a millennia, unless there's some kind of loophole that I can get into. And then, of course, if you want to buy your Lambos, that's cool too. But are you ever going to really own a Lambo? No, you're going to have to keep paying tax on it. You're going to have to insure it. You're going to have to register with the state or wherever you're else at. So again, I think that, to bring it all home, I think this is good for Bitcoin. I would like to see a little bit more diversity, but more people that come in, it means that they're going to hopefully try to understand and go, why is the numbers going up? Well, what is going on with the government? Why? And inflation, is that just because of what Elizabeth Warren talks about, just these greedy corporations? Or maybe are they actually printing more money than they actually should? And why are we in so much debt? It just leads them down to that rabbit hole. So I'm happy with it. I'm glad they're here.
As long as I have the choice, and anyone has the choice to self-custody and or go with a service, as I call it, I have nothing against it. The problem is when they will impose me not to self-custody, then I'll be not happy about it. And also, Bitcoin is, in my opinion, the perfect money. So if the ETF is going to ruin it, well, that means it's not the perfect money. So, and who am I to forbid someone to have access to the perfect money? Bitcoin's supposed to be for everybody. So just go and have it. You choose to go through custody, well, that's your call. As long as you know what you're getting yourself into it. And maybe some people, like you said, they're going to go into an ETF first, and then a few years later, a few months later, they'll decide, oh, actually, wait, can I self-custody? Okay, maybe I'll take some in my Trezor or whatever choice they make. So I think it's helping. If we want this thing to be adopted, self-custody only is not going to cut it. I think most people wouldn't even, I don't think they want that responsibility. They need to remember the words and where do I store the device and what does it mean, a blockchain and password is still too complicated. So I think if we are waiting for those massive major price appreciation, I think we need BlackRock, I think we need Fidelity, I think we need Bitwise to help spread the message. I don't think overall is bad, and I'm not a Bitcoin maxi per se. I have a position in altcoins, I have a position in meme coins. I actually use them to make more Bitcoin, which I think we have something in common here because I follow you, I follow your video, I know how you're playing the market. Some people see that the superpower of Bitcoin is self-custody, but it's not the only one. You know, it's one of many in my view. It's like a magic bucket, and you have to choose the properties that interest you the most. So if you only see Bitcoin as a self-custody item, I think you are missing out on a rainbow of different features. One could be scarcity, transferability, divisibility. Those things are some in the bucket. So Peter Schiff, of course, was using it as an argument because he was debating with Da Vinci that the ETF was a joke.
I gotta agree. I agree with you here. And Peter Schiff, he's gonna die on that hill. And if that's what he wants to do, that's fantastic. It's just that I feel sorry for the people that have only listened to him and have not diversified because, yes, gold is up. I want to say we might be around an all-time high in the last couple of months. That's great. But as far as percentage-wise over the last decade, I think you could have done better. But that's just me. Actually, no, that's not just me. That's actually pure data. Yeah, you could have done way better over a decade if you would invest into Bitcoin. And no, it's not going to zero. We've already been have this discussion. And then all of a sudden, there's also, we have a presidential candidate, Donald Trump, and love him or hate him, he's going to be speaking at Bitcoin conference, and he's actually talked about how he wants to incorporate Bitcoin and actually, of course, make the USA a superpower of Bitcoin mining. Now, he wants, of course, all the mining to be done in America. We know that can't happen. But, if you're just looking at like a directional sense of where things are going, I don't get Peter's argument whatsoever.
By the way, he's such a cool dude. I have nothing but respect for Peter. I'm sure you do as well. Like, I've met him in person in Germany. It was amazing.
This is what I hear. Yeah.
He was on the podcast. We had a blast. When we stopped rolling, which I was still filming, he said some things that I said, hey, now I have you on tape, which is okay. We had a good laugh. Yeah. Such a gentleman. I really, really like him. And I understand his point of view. Like, if you've done one thing for your entire life, for years and years and years, and all of a sudden, something else comes up, you don't understand what it is, you don't have time for it, then it's going to be much, much harder for you to pivot on your mindset and say, oh, okay, what do you mean internet money? What do you mean is the thing I can't touch? What do you mean? No, I have gold. So equally, I would probably be in the same shoes in 50 years from now or 40 years from now, having done Bitcoin for my entire career and studied this thing over and over, that I would have less flexibility in my mind. So I get it, I get it to a degree.
I get it to a degree, but you have to do yourself, not just yourself a service, but the people that actually listen to you. And in that situation, you have to take a real step back and go, is this the best I can do for everybody? Look at Larry Fink. And he said, he goes, I was wrong. I was wrong for years. And I feel that now that Bitcoin is a flight to safety and it's a store of value, and that's why we've pursued it so heavily. And this is where I'm at. So you have somebody like that. I mean, even Michael Saylor in 2013 said, Bitcoin, it's time for that show to stop, and people are going to get off this gamble or whatever he said on the X account or Twitter back then. Yeah. People learn, and that's okay if you don't get it. I guess my grandma never really figured out email either, so that's fine. I mean, we just do these things and we move forward.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, to a degree, I was I like to say a meme coin virgin until this cycle. I've never even, I wasn't criticizing anything, but I didn't have time for it, to be honest. And then this cycle, something has changed. I went like proper degen, but it's a controlled move, right? So I have a wallet where I deposit money for the 4-year cycle. I give myself an allowance. Before you said something about Vegas and casino, I basically do the same thing. When you go to the casino and you want to gamble, you don't go with everything you've got. You just decide, I'll take $100 and go and gamble. If I double it, great. If I lose it, great. I'm having fun. So that's my process on the meme, right? But it was funny for me to get into, I think I bought Dogecoin for the first time, I think it was 8 months ago or something. And while I was exchanging Bitcoin for Dogecoin, I was actually laughing through myself and saying, I cannot believe I'm doing this because I've been in one position for so long. And then that opened the door of filthiness, whether I went down into a route of complete degen. But it's a calculated move. And I know you also have altcoin in your portfolio. I mean, is there anything you have in your radar specifically?
Well, to comment about what you said about the meme coins, I know some people, they love them. Some people are in the middle, and some people absolutely despise them. And I think you hit on the head where you said, I knew that it was gambling. And I think as long as people understand that basic fact, then it's okay. Because you know when you go in a casino and everything's flashing, you hear people cheering, and drinks are coming pretty hot and heavy. You're like, okay, I get this. This is gambling, right? No one has to tell me like, hey, you should really think about selling your house and your kids and your kidneys to put everything on black. As long as you understand it, that's great. So with memes and even with altcoins, especially as you start to go down that market cap, as long as you understand that, that's what it is. And there's some good projects out there, don't get me wrong, then you're fine. Now moving into like your next part where you talked about like, what am I looking for right now? I own a lot of altcoins, a lot. And I'm saying like over 70. And that seems pretty crazy for some people. And to be honest, it is. But I've been around since 2017 and I got a lot of dust just sitting around for these different cryptos that'll never come back. And I never really sold them because I round tripped because I didn't learn my lesson. But coming into it, I think that, as we get into these other parts of the cycle, I think things will do quite well. What I'm looking for nowadays is just things that actually have real world utility and actually do something. So we talk about meme coins. We say that they're gambling. That's fine. Then we talk about utility, like what do things actually do? And I will tell you that I was not a big fan of like, say, Solana. So like with VC coins, I always say to people like, look, the VCs pretty much cashed out, I think the majority of them, before the FTX collapse. They knew it was going to happen. They dumped on you. Just accept it. Let's move on. And then it went down to, I want to say $9, $8, somewhere around there from its high of over 200, whatever it was. So now I think as people have got into it, I think it's a little bit more diversified. And to talk about meme coins, I realized how good Solana actually was when I did a giveaway on a live stream and I used the Phantom wallet and I gave away MR.M. It was one of those, meme dog coins. And I could do this. I say, okay, like everybody's put your address in. Address would go in. I just pick people at random. I'd say, okay, I'm going to send you some Milo, or Milo, I should say. How much did I send you? And then like within like 4 or 5 seconds, people would say, oh, you send me 2,000 or whatever it was. I'm like, wow, I just sent this for a fraction of a penny. It actually hit their wallet. It was finality. And they have value. And I don't know where these people are. They could have been in North Korea. They could have been in China. They could have been in Iran. It didn't matter as long as they had a VPN, let's be honest. I could actually move it across. So with Solana, I'm like, that sounds pretty good. I'm also looking at the open network or Toncoin. And I did a video about this, and I thought to myself, remember when Mark Zuckerberg came out and with Libra, and the American government was like, no, we're going to shut you down. And they did, and they shut him down. That didn't happen. But I thought, man, if you had like a couple of billion users already, I think in the world we're working around 8 billion people or so, correct me in the comments. So like Telegram's got around 900 million, close to a billion, right? Let's just say that 50% are bots. Who knows? You still got 500 million people built in. So with the open network, and of course they got busted by the SEC, they had to retread everything. They came out and they let another entity do it, and it was consolidated as far as like the tokens go, especially for the mining. Now, if you take a look at End of the Block, you can see just how diversified it is. Whales, I think, is around 28 to 32%. Investors, which have pretty big amount as well, around 29, 30%, somewhere around there, and the rest is for retail. So I know people will say like, well, it's too condensed. It doesn't. It's becoming more decentralized, and I like what I see, especially with the people that are actually in there, and then with the actual. I mean, it's not just Telegram as a messaging app service. Now it's apps within apps, and I did a whole video. You can check that out. So I look at that one. I also like things that are I know some people say that, Cardano is a dead chain. I still like the community. I still like what they're doing. So we'll see. So I still invest in stuff like that. Near Protocol, of course, with Ilya and the head of the founder, and they're already doing sharding, and they've done a great job with the products that are actually built on them, Sweatcoin being one of them. So like, I take a look at all these different tokens and I say, this could do, this could do. Having said all that, I still have 70% plus of my value in Bitcoin, because as I get older, and it seems like getting older, really feel it these days, my risk to reward ratio, I want to keep the risk down and the reward high, even though if it's less. So that's where I'm at.
I also was quite surprised with Solana. I actually started using it for NFTs when Magic Eden had 5 collection. I was already doing stuff and helping people to build. As we discussed off camera, my background is design, so NFTs was something interesting for me. So I've seen the old rise and the old fell and the old rise again, and I was not expecting Solana to push back after the FTX and everything. I was like, okay, that's it, it's done. So surprisingly for me, I also have a position on Solana, of course, but the most interesting part for me was a lesson I learned, which is, people joke and they say sometimes online or out of luck or whatever the ticker, you wanna rename it, but it doesn't matter. And this is a lesson I've learned, because it took me a few hours. I had to do some research and find out exactly how many outages the Solana chain had since. And by the way, they still say they're in beta, by the way. So it took me a few hours, and I managed to write down every single outages, when it was, for how long. It was quite a few. And I tweeted it saying, hey, no hate. I just wanted to share some data. The amount of people commenting on my tweets saying, more, let's go down further, who cares, new all-time high, showed me that people are not in for the tech, period. And I knew it, but when when they say, seeing there is one thing, going there is another thing. So that was my moment where I was like, man, I'm too deep into the technology. People don't care. So hence, it's going to do really well. Cardano, I'm a big Cardano bull. I have a big bag. I know it's controversial these days. People hate it because it's a dead chain. I disagree entirely. I think they're going through an important period now to finish off the last step of their roadmap. So I also like Charles as a person. I follow him personally. I think he's a great dude. Yeah, I have Chainlink. I like Chainlink. It's a good position.
Chainlink, great one.
I don't have, me like you, 70, maybe even a little bit, like maybe on the 75%, depending, whenever you check your portfolio, if Bitcoin is pumping, is doing all the stats. But let's say on paper, it's kind of 70-30 like you. I have a position on Ethereum because I can't not have a position on Ethereum. And now I have a position on memes. I don't have many, but I probably have 4 or 5. And I have to say, as long as you manage it, as long as you know that you are playing with fire, as long as you know that you are going degen, and I call it filthy bag for a reason, right? Because I know that bag is filthy. I think it's healthy. And also, I don't know if you agree here with me, but I think some people hate them. I think it's a great marketing tool for Bitcoin. It's a great way for introduce the blockchain to newcomer, because I believe, and I would like to know what you think here, but if you've done 1 or 2 cycles, regardless if you got in because of NFTs, meme coins, altcoins, whatever it is, if you've done 2 cycles, you have a Bitcoin position.
Here's why I agree. It's because what you said is true as you go through these different cycles. And especially, and this actually goes back to the gold and silver we were talking about before, right? People will say, well, why would you do that? Because it's not going to go anywhere. Well, first of all, it does keep up with inflation reasonably well. And if you overlay the M2 money supply with the S&P 500 and even crypto in general, the market cap, you'll see that you're not really gaining so much as you're just pumping more money into the market itself. And you actually do that with real estate as well. So going into this, going through a couple of cycles, we've been there, right? Actually, Maurizio, you've actually gone for further down than I have. But I will tell you, as I've been in here, I've made many mistakes, especially people who follow me on my channel and know exactly what I'm talking about. In the last cycle in 2021, I would look around, I'd say, okay, where's the biggest gains? That was the big thing. And I'd look at the biggest gains. And one of the things I looked at was Voyager. And Voyager was, I felt, a great project. It was a centralized exchange. It was like the hotels.com of centralized exchanges. It would say, okay, well, let's take a look at Coinbase and Kraken and OKX and whatever else. We'll find you the best deal, and we'll give you the best price, including the spread, and we'll make a little bit of profit, and everybody's happy. I thought this is a great business. And they had a token, VGX. So I did two mistakes. First of all, I said, the two mistake was talking about how VGX a token because you get reduced fees on your trades. And also because if you held your crypto on the centralized exchange, you'd have a better yield. What happened? It wasn't that Voyager sucked or it was bad. It's just that they made a bad, dumb decision. And that dumb decision was to do a $630 or $640 million loan at 3 Arrows Capital. And the reason why they did that was to keep up with the Joneses, aka Celsius, as they were giving so much yield. And of course, what happens? You do an uncollateralized loan, which is the dumbest thing you can possibly ever do, and then they collapsed. And then before that, Celsius, who I also talked about, because I said, okay, this looks pretty good. We've got Alex Mashinsky. He's had a couple of billion-dollar exits on different companies, and he's offering some pretty good yield. I'm going to keep some crypto there. Both of those failed. So just like Warren Buffett says, you should learn from mistakes. They don't have to be your mistakes. So learn from my screw-ups. And those screw-ups were this. And that's why I have these 5 rules on every one of my videos right below my enormous head when I'm talking about different things. And one of those is don't invest more than you can afford to lose or it's all gone. The second one is everything's a scam until proven otherwise. The third thing is don't leave anything on exchanges. That's why it goes down to that self-custody thing. I know it's tough, but you can do it. Another one is don't use leverage. And the last one, and the toughest one to do, is take profits. Nobody ever went broke taking profits. And if you can follow these 5 rules, I think it will serve you quite well. And I wish I would have known that beforehand, and I wouldn't have lost so much. And that's why I'm a little bit more risk averse going into this next bull.
Super well said. I love your 5 rules, by the way. Here's my 2 Satoshis. Sometimes you can lead the horse to the river, but you can't make the horse drink the water. So I've been trying to help so many people, but the thing is, they don't want to listen. You have to put, and by the way, myself included, one of the hardest things you can possibly do is just, I say to everyone who's asking me, because you know how it is, right? Your people in the family, on LinkedIn, whatever social media you use, you are the Bitcoin guy, and whenever the price pumps, they come back, the retail is back, and they'll ask, hey, what do I do? I wanted to go all in Shiba Inu. No. It's just DCA into Bitcoin, right? It's the easiest thing you can possibly do. Take some money you can afford to lose into a monthly, weekly, whatever you can buy, and just buy Bitcoin and forget about it. That's it. But just because it's so simple, it's so damn difficult, because then you start doing this and then you go, wait, I'm smarter than this. I can make more gains. Bitcoin is not pumping enough. And here's the greed, gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, right? Damn it.
Yeah, welcome to that meme where it's like, hey, it did a 2x, which means it could do a 10x. So profits, I don't need to. You know what? There's one last tip I'd give to people who are watching. Your family's going to ask you about crypto. Your friends are going to ask you about crypto. Here's a tip that I do with my friends. First of all, if not good friends, I just say, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't deal with crypto. The second thing is if you have family and friends that you're close to, you say, look, here's what I'm investing into. There's a 99% chance you're going to lose everything. There's a 1% chance you can make some gains. So if you're okay with that, you can give it a shot, but I would definitely take profits as fast as possible. But it's a pretty good chance you're going to lose everything. So you ready to talk about it? You are? Okay. You're quite a warrior. And then I just talk about, the different things I'm investing into. And that's it. Then if they do lose something like, well, I got into Bitcoin, like you said, but then I got into, dog with hat and I lost everything. Well, I told you 99%.
Comes with a bag of experience. Like we are saying, it's actually hard to pretend that you're new into a sector, and it's always the same. It's always the same trick. At some point, your ego goes, "I know better," and this is when you are most vulnerable. This is where you lose everything because you stop following the plan. I'm okay with pivoting. I think pivoting is great, but you have to have a plan. Like you're saying, taking profits. That's no one has ever gone broke, and like you said so well. So remember, at some point, Da Vinci says, when it doubles, take half of the table, so at least you have your investment back. But then, you go into the meme that you talked about where I can do 20, 50 X's now, and then boom. And then there is also the market cap component. When imagine you are someone who has never seen crypto before, you jump into this CoinGecko list and you go, one Bitcoin, $70,000. Think about how many Shiba Inu I can buy with $100. So then when Shiba Inu is going to go to the price of Bitcoin, I'm a millionaire. I'm like, guys, no, market cap. It doesn't work like this. But then you already open a door which is way too far for people. They don't want to listen to you. They think they know. They go all in Shiba Inu, everything crashes, and they call crypto a scam. That's like a scenario I've seen a couple of times, right?
Exactly. And well, two things. First of all, Da Vinci, what a legend, great guy, right? He was like one of the first guys I saw on YouTube when I got into crypto. I'm like, who's this guy? This is like back in like 2013. He's like, just put a little bit into Bitcoin. And I wish I would have listened to him more, because that would have made a lot more sense than the crazy stuff that I got into in 2017 and crazy ICOs. But there's that, and then of course, like teaching people or people learning lessons. It's like with kids, right? Sometimes you're like, okay, don't stick your finger, don't get too close to that electric wire, don't get too close. I'm telling you, you're like, forget it, just touch it, fine. Because
Yeah.
see, I told you, now you know to never touch that again. And like you got to have, it's like you have to be like that tough love kind of person at some point, because they won't listen to you. Like we try, like, whatever. Go ahead and lose everything.
Is there any specific book that you would like to recommend to our audience?
There's a couple of ones that I'm taking a look at right now, but the tried and true is, it doesn't matter all the things that you learn about as far as the macro events, the TA that's out there, or the different things that you can do to judge and get ahead of the market. The thing is if you don't take care of the mental aspect, you're going to fail every time. So what I always recommend is Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. And if you are more into the stoicism of life and just looking for things that can make you a little better, that would be the big thing. And lastly, I'll say like this: everybody's chasing the big price, the big pump. And Bitcoin can give you those things. They can give you massive appreciation, but the goal is and always should be freedom. So Bitcoin can massively appreciate, gold and silver could even do it, real estate could do it. And you can think about these things, but it is not those things. Those things that you use those assets for, that's the most important thing. It's not just about sitting on a mile high top like Scrooge McDuck of coins. It's really just being able to do the freedom and moving about and living your own life. That's, to me, the real goal.
I love it. Sometimes I give the example of, at least for me, for my own goal, I like to use money to have time, because time is my favorite asset as far as I'm concerned. It's the most scarce I've seen so far. So why do I need money? I need money because I want more time. Okay, great. So time is the goal. I want to be free. Like you said, Gary Cardone, which I had on my podcast, said, unless you can say "F you," you are not free. Right? Which I love that, even though the swearing is going to be beeped. But the point is, I agree with you guys. Like, freedom is also my ultimate catch. So then maybe there are things you can do in your life now, knowing that if you are after time and freedom, well, don't forget, this is the price. So sometimes it's good to be focused into moments to build, to create, to whatever it is that you have to do to focus on something, right? You don't have to be rich to appreciate time, right?
Exactly right. Yeah, I mean, there's one thing that I can buy a lot of things, but I can't buy time.
Exactly. So that's why I'm super thankful with you, because you gave me the most precious asset on the planet. So thank you, Rob. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it. It was a good time, and we'll have to do this again.
Thank you guys for watching. Thank you again, Rob. Speak to you soon, okay?
All right. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye.